this gentleman?
Oh, first, because we need that.
She seemed like a nice kid.
Yeah, she is.
That's right.
Or senior.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, March 29th, special meeting of the City of Brook Park Council. Notice was sent out to council members Stem, Mancini, Orcutt, Scott, Bergio, Poindexter, Salvatore, Council President Vecchio, Mayor Gamella, Law Director Horvath, and Finance Director Single. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergio?
Here.
Orcutt?
Here.
Stem?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Poindexter?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
If everyone would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, at this time, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Motion so made. Support. Support.
Thank
You
you.
can finish
For attorney conferences. Thank you, Mr. Mancini.
anytime. Glad to help.
We don't even have it on here.
Pending litigation.
For pending litigation, I'm sorry. Motion is made, properly supported. Discussion on the motion, anyone? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Salvatore? Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
7-2.
Motion has been approved. We will now convene to executive session. Your house.
Hello. What's going on out there? Yeah.
Carrying on.
Good Troy over there?
He was here earlier, yeah.
Yeah, the Browns traded Kessler for a 7th round pick. Yeah, he was a 3rd rounder.
You're living in the past, man.
Oh, I've been so busy trying to
Can I have his name?
balance this budget.
Yeah. Thank you.
He's coming back, baby. He's coming back. Slim Jimmy go now. New and improved.
Yeah, if they don't call it because of snow.
Is it snowing in Seattle?
No, next week when they open here.
It's like at the Dome.
Did you see the first pitch of Major League Baseball today?
Home run.
Chicago Cubs.
Jake
I
Hop.
know.
Hop from Chicago.
Huh?
Hop.
Hot? Was it hot?
Yeah. He didn't just hit it.
Oh, crushed it.
I mean, it was
Friends.
it was in the upper deck. I mean, as soon as he hit it, he didn't care.
First pitch.
First pitch of the cattle right there.
The season. Not just.
They're gonna be tough. Chicago. I don't like them, but they're gonna be tough.
Come on, Mancini, you're holding us up.
It's like standing in line.
Oh, Lord. Like the story of my life.
Well, something happened last week where I figured things did something and overcompensated, and now it's something to too much because I went back. I don't know you guys, the whole building was hot. You know, warm, the coolest place was 77 degrees. Don't do much. I make the right phone calls. That's all.
All right, council, take a motion to adjourn the executive session.
Motion so made. Support.
Motion made, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Executive session is adjourned. Take a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
So made. Support.
Motion to go back to the regular order of business made, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Bergio,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. We are back into the special council meeting. Moving on, next item is number 3, remarks from the audience on subject matter on this agenda only. If anyone would like to come to the podium, you may do so and speak on the items on this agenda, which happens to be the council budget, or the city budget. State your name and your address for the record if you plan to do so. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move forward. Third reading of ordinances and resolutions. See the attached sheet, everybody. And on that is an ordinance to provide for the appropriations of the City of Brook Park, State of Ohio for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, introduced by Mayor Gamella. Floor is open, gentlemen. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Single, if you don't mind. Greg, can we go through this proposed capital improvement expenditures and signify which are obligated already for the year and which are they're proposed. Is there a possibility of doing that?
Through the chair to Councilman Scott, sure, let me just. Does everybody have a copy of the proposed capital improvement expenditures? It was copied last night for all members of council. Everybody have that copy? Try to capture all the dollars that aren't unrestricted for 2018. So starting in the recreation department, kitchen area 15,000. The front desk improvements 15,000. The concession stand improvements of 15,000. Then miscellaneous equipment 19,000.
I don't see miscellaneous equipment, do you?
Miscellaneous equipment / copy release is 21,552. 19,000 that's unrestricted.
Oh, okay. 19,000 is unrestricted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on that? Moving forward, mechanics, miscellaneous tools, equipment, 10,000. Any questions there? Police department, building improvements, 50,000. Detective bureau improvements, 20,000. Server, 22,000. Vehicles lease, 58,000. Any questions on the police department? Moving on to the fire department, fire station number 9 improvements, 150,000. Sanitation, rear loader lease, 45,000. Yes, CM&R fund. Construction contracts would be used in case of an emergency, 150,000.
Real quick question. Those are all restricted funds, right?
That would be unrestricted.
Are they
They're
earmarked?
not restricted.
They're not earmarked for any? Okay.
They're earmarked for the purposes that are set forth on this worksheet, but there hasn't been any contracts let or encumbrances created.
Okay, thank you.
That's just the proposed use of these funds. Any questions? Sewers and drains, pump station improvements, 100,000. Snow, plow blades, 20,000. And then in tax, legal, and finance, $5,000 each. The Office of Aging, the senior van lease, 25,000. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for right now.
Mr. Orcutt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, real quick, through the chair to the finance director. Greg, what was the 5,000 for again? The tax and legal, you said?
Tax, legal, finance, 5,000 each. We usually put 5,000 in each of those departments. For example, in law department, they buy law books majority of the times.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Salvatore.
Through the chair to the finance director, now these proposed capital expenditures, that does not include the economic development fund. Can you go over the funds out of that, 325, and do the same thing?
moving on to the three-year disbursements and appropriations. Page 11. In the contracts line, 365,000. That was, as was discussed last night, 200,000 for senior services. And 160,000 for HMAP / economic development grants. A total of 360.
And wasn't that HMAP, wasn't that reduced?
Through the chair, Councilman Salvatore, per the Economic Development Commissioner's comments last night, I believe 50,000, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, 50,000 would be appropriated for the HMAP program at this time, and the remaining 110,000 would be appropriated for the economic development grants, but 30,000 of that has already been spent this year. Council earlier this year, as you remember, approved the grant to Quest for $30,000.
So what's been already spoken for is the
So
two,
30,000 of the 30,000 of the 360,
so the total, 200,000 for the senior services,
correct.
and then the 30,000 of the grant that's already been approved.
Right, so you have about 80,000 in grant money and 50,000 in HMAP money.
So if we wanted to freeze that program for a year, then that, we wouldn't need that 50, or if we wanted to revisit that program altogether and maybe chop it up to a, maybe 40,000 and put 10,000 in each ward and take another look on how it gets dispersed, where you would have to, maybe go back to the original idea for matching funds. That if somebody wanted to borrow or they get a grant up to 5,000, they'd have to have another 5 so they could do a real improvement of around 10,000 and maybe stay in the house for 5 years, guarantee that, so that that if they move within 5 years, then that money would revert back to the city. As one councilman, I wouldn't mind revisiting that program and doing something like that, if the votes were there, but I certainly would like to leave some of that money in there so that we could do that. As a suggestion, maybe we leave 40 in there for that, and then revisit the program. If council's willing, I'd be willing to ask Carol to bring that legislation forward with an amendment at it, and we could look at it for the next caucus meeting and discuss it and go forward. If I could continue in the recreation fund, as one councilman, I liked Mark's ideas about the fence. I know it got taken out, but for $1,600, I think that fence should be put back in. And I also like the projector and the screen. And I think we can come up with some really creative things with having that ability, such as maybe filming championship games and inviting the families and the children come and watch themselves on TV and make an evening out of it. Something that we tried to do years ago with cable television, it just never worked out. But turning the clock back, maybe this old-fashioned way of doing things may be a good idea. And I'd like to, maybe, I don't think we need 10,000 for it, maybe we can shop around and find something that's adequate that we could do it, but I certainly like the idea. So when the time comes, I would make that suggestion that we put that money in there. And after conversation with our finance director, there is a fund available that we may be able to capture those funds out of, which won't really affect the budget anyway. So that's my comments so far.
Anyone else? Mr. Orcutt.
I just needed to recap right there with what Councilman Salvatore said. With HMAP, what was your recommendation again?
For mine,
Yes,
leave at least 40 in there. Scott asked for 50.
yes.
I'd like to break it, I like to try to be fair and spread it out to the different wards if we're going to revisit the legislation. If we're not, then we're gonna need a little more, but I think when you get into matching funds and guarantees that people are gonna stay in the community. It's not some investor coming along and getting $5,000 and selling it. It's really, a real resident that's gonna hang around. That's what I would like to see happen, but again, that's my opinion. So if we left 40 in there for that, the 200 for seniors, the 30 that's already committed, and then after we evaluate everything, when we have a little more time, we can start shifting the money back into the funds where it belongs and go forward.
And Greg, that still leaves the 80,000 in there for grants, is that correct?
We have 80,000 for grants, correct?
Through the chair, and I hope I'm not skipping out a turn here, through the chair to the finance director, on average, how many grants has the city been giving out to the businesses per year?
Through the chair to Councilman Orcutt, so I was going back through this detailed expense transaction report, and as long as I pulled there's a lot of transactions through there, so it looks like in 2016, about 100,000 was spent in grants, with like two were issued, one for 50,000 and one for roughly 49,600. And in 2017, 75,000. One for 50 and one for 25.
Okay, and that's, maybe in the future we can look at that as well too, but thank you very much, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Nobody else?
Councilman Scott.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that, in the proposed capital improvements expenditure, to take all the unobligated or unrestricted funds, take and place them into Fund 545 for street repairs, and then reevaluate the requests due to the fact that I personally haven't had, after last night, I tried making phone calls to other department heads and whatnot to try and go over what was said last night, if we put this budget on the line right now, I probably wouldn't vote for it right now. So I would like to make a mass motion to place the unrestricted funds into Fund 545 for further discussion.
Let me clarify, the unrestricted funds from 401
28
capital improvement
401 capital improvement.
to
yes.
where, I'm sorry?
Into Fund 545, 2018 street funds, and then take the monies out
Okay, so 401 to 545.
after we reevaluate the requests that were made.
I'll support that.
There's a motion on the floor to transfer the unrestricted funds from Fund 401 to Fund 545. Properly supported. Discussion on the motion?
I would support that with the understanding that we're gonna call some meetings for next week so we can move forward and get this, and get it behind us. But I do know we have to pass this budget. And if the votes aren't there to pass it the way it is, then we must continue on beyond this and put some of this money back into these different funds so that we can move forward very diligently, and I'd like to do that for next week. So make myself available for any night over, huh? You won't?
Wednesday.
Not Wednesday? Okay, any night but Wednesday. So they can continue on the budget process for the proposed capital improvement expenditures.
Mr. Orcutt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I've got this, through the chair to Councilman Scott, just the ones that we went over right now with the finance director.
Correct.
Okay.
Does the finance director, do you have a total number what that equates to?
729,000.
729?
Through the chair to Councilman Salter, 720,000, but it's just not as easy as just moving it over there. It needs to be transferred over. So my suggestion would be just not to appropriate it and then come back, because if we're gonna transfer it over, then after transfer it back, we're making a lot of different transfers. It just would be easier just to not appropriate those dollars, come back next week, just talk about the capital improvement budget, how much you want to allocate to each department, how much you want to allocate to roads, and we'll just talk strictly capital improvement, and we will be making all these transfers back and forth. It's going to become cumbersome from a record-keeping standpoint.
That doesn't include the Economic Development Fund, that number, right?
Through the chair to Councilman Salter, no, it doesn't.
So we'd have to include that too, we'd have to reduce that from 388.5 to 270, if that's correct, if you look at that, Mr. Finance Director, and we've already committed the 200 for seniors, the 30 for the grant, and 40 for the program. That will come out to 270, is that correct?
Well, if I may, there's an additional, which is the 110 for the recreation, for the change request in the recreation department also, that would be in that. So there would be an additional $110,000 from that, from Fund 401.
Mr. Chairman, the 110 is spoken for. Council approved
Already
the
approved.
ordinance.
It's already approved.
Yeah, that's.
Is it off of
approved.
the, but is it off of this number? That's my question.
That's in the government land, general government lands and buildings and the infrastructure improvements and reserve. It's in that number.
Right, that's why I'm asking, because that would already have been reduced from this 388, correct?
No, the 365 is the contract line in the Economic Development Fund. I think the easiest thing to do tonight, if you wanna reduce, let's start with economic development. If you wanna reduce the Economic Development Fund down to, and the contract line down to 270, there would need to be a motion made to reduce that contract line down to 95,000. That would be one. Then the other suggestion I would say is, rather than transfer those dollars in capital, I'm over in capital now, and then transfer those dollars over to Fund 545, just don't appropriate them. Have another meeting, determine the appropriations that council wants to approve. We'll then submit a change ordinance for council to approve at a later date. Because I have to take this document, that once the budget's passed, that document needs to be sent down to the county. The county approves the certificate of estimated resources. So they look at all the funds, make sure there are enough resources available to pay the proposed appropriations. So when we start making all these different transfers, it's, again, there's more record keeping involved.
But where's this money gonna show up at then?
This won't be appropriated. We reduced appropriation. We have X number of dollars in there. Appropriation would be reduced by 729,000. And then we would come back in a later date and appropriate those
Well, that
dollars.
729 doesn't include the reduction in economic development.
Right, so the economic development monies, we reduce that fund down by, I believe it's 95,000.
Why are we only doing the 95? What about the other 23.5? If we only spoken for 270, then we'd reduce it by 118.5.
There are committed expenses against professional service. I know some monies have been spent this year. I know there was an appraisal done. We have a contract with the municipal advisor. Travel and education, I believe each year, there's a, it's either GIS or there's a fee that's charged each year out of it, that would be utilized this year as well.
Did we do it last year?
Yeah, last year we spent on page 11, the Economic Development Fund, under travel and education, we spent $33.95. So, make sure.
Okay, so that number's in line, pretty much in line for the last 3 years. Okay. So we would be reducing it by 95,000, adding that to the 729. $824,000, that sound right? Okay,
So we have to we're not just appropriating the, what was it, 720,000?
yeah, we're gonna, Mr. Chairman, can we add the economic development change to that motion to do it all at once, or do you want that separate?
I think if it's gonna be simpler for finance, we put it together. Greg, is that what you're requesting?
Well, as far as, Mr. Chairman, as far as the motion by council, it does, you know, if you want to do it all in one, it doesn't matter to Marty or I, or Marty or me. I think I know what you're looking to do, is just reduce the economic development contract line by 95,000, and then in capital, again, I would suggest it's not appropriate in 729,000, and it's appropriated at a later date.
All right, well, that doesn't give me any clarity, and I think if that's the case, then make it two separate motions. Make it two separate motions, and then forward it that way. So in that case, Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Just so I'm clear, because I'm new to this budget talk stuff, we're proposing not fulfilling any of the department's requests to put it all into the roads program. Is that where we're at?
No, the request is to not fulfill those at the moment for time to review the departmental requests.
But in the meantime, it's going to go into the roads program?
The fund that everything would be moved into, my understanding, as I just read, would be that it would go into, was it 545, I'm sorry, yes.
So then it gets moved into 545, and then what?
At that point, review of each department's requests and appropriate where we need to from that to their fund.
If anyone else has a question, they can go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I got to think about this question for a second. If anyone else has anything,
We'll
they
move on
can
to
go
somebody else and come back to you, if anybody else. Mr. Orcutt?
I think I'm thinking it right. We're just gonna hold off with divvying up that money, and just because it's only been less than a day since the department heads have been here. And then, once we have time, we'll have meetings like Councilman Salvatore recommended, and we'll take care of this as soon as possible.
That's my understanding from the way it was laid out by Councilman Salvatore, yes. Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair, a follow-up question. I believe the motion was to transfer the money into the streets program, and then recommendation from Finance Director was to just motion to not appropriate the monies right now to the capital.
Correct, but there was a motion on the floor that if we're changing, that would have to be rescinded, and then another motion would have to be made. Mr. Scott?
I make motion rescind. I rescind my motion.
I'm sorry?
I rescind my motion and place it into 545.
Mr. Salvatore, he's rescinded his motion.
Okay, we'll just not appropriate the money.
Pardon me, sir?
Just make a motion, we're not gonna appropriate the money.
You'll have to rescind your second on that, sir.
I'll rescind it.
All right, so the motion has been rescinded.
Make a motion to place
You might as well include the economic development fund reduction too.
729,000 unrestricted funds not to be appropriated at this time.
Include the economic development fund with reduction of 95 in the motion, do it all at once.
Talking 720,000, and then we're talking 729,000 with the economic development fund, correct?
95. Oh,
795?
no, the money amount is, it's in 325, and then the amount of money is 95,000.
So we're gonna make two motions. Make two motions then, correct? Marty? I mean, through the chair to Greg, is that correct? You'd rather have two motions
Mr.
on this?
Scott, you know what, it doesn't matter, again, to us if you make it under one motion or another, but it might be just simpler to just take one at a time. So start with the economic development, if you want to reduce that contract line item by 95,000, start there, and then in the capital improvement expenditures, you're going to, if I understand it correctly, just not appropriate 729,000. The monies that we went through that are unrestricted, then we'll clean up the ordinance and
Okay.
send it over to
And
Council
and if I
President
can, in that total between the 729 and the 95,000 from economic development would be 834,000.
We're gonna do separates and leave it.
I'm sorry?
We'll do separate ones and separate motions.
824.
824,000, I'm sorry, you're correct. 824,000. I had marked down 834 as you were talking at that time. 824,000. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. My question is, couldn't we just leave it in the capital improvements budget and just not approve the expenses? And then we can move it from that fund that it's already appropriated for now, and we can just move it at a later date?
I think you'd want to defer and ask the finance director on that. Greg?
through the chair to Councilman Poindexter, if you leave it appropriated, some of the monies could be spent. Not all of them, obviously. Some of them are gonna need council action. For example, the pump station improvements, 100,000 there, it's gonna have to come back to council for approval. But, some of the dollars potentially, could be expended. I guess if you directed me not to process any purchase orders related to these unrestricted funds, I just wouldn't process them. And then you could just reappropriate the monies later if you wanted to.
So in essence, we could just pass the budget as is with direction to not approve the capital improvement expenditures that are unrestricted, and then also direct the finance director to not use those funds. And we can just move it, it would serve the same purpose.
Well, what he's saying is that what's left in the 700 fund, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Single, what is left in 401, I'm sorry, would, anything that's sitting in that's appropriated in the appropriations, each of the departments that are there could spend. So by making the motion that was made by Mr. Salvatore or by Mr. Scott, I'm sorry, by making that motion, it prohibits that from happening. So then we have the chance to come back to council, has the chance to take a look over it, and then come back, meet, and disperse accordingly.
Yeah, it's the same either way, just putting it in one fund or keeping it in this fund it's already in.
The other option is to move it to the roads program, and as a respect to this finance director, that's additional work. As long as the money doesn't get spent by the motion that was modified, I think it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, we'll go back to the original motion. And put a whole bunch of extra work on the shoulders of the finance department. I think Mr. Single's suggestion is a good one.
Okay.
What's your question, Mr. Mancini?
Could I go through the chair?
Please.
I was going to make a comment, but I'll hold that yet. But through the chair to Greg. Greg, what is the best way to do this? Because I think we're just kind of dragging along here.
Through the chair of Councilman Mancini, if council's not clear on how they want to appropriate the monies
Yes.
moving forward, if that's the consensus of city council, I think the cleanest way is just not to appropriate those dollars tonight. Take them out of this budget, pass the budget, come back, and just have a discussion strictly on capital improvements and the Economic Development Fund. We have done that in the past, where we've passed what I'll call an operating budget, and then come back and pass a capital budget later. So, if council's not clear, or if there isn't a consensus on how to spend these unrestricted dollars, not appropriating would be the prudent thing to do tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Council President.
No, that's fine. Let him go ahead.
Mr. Poindexter.
Yeah, I think I'd feel more comfortable with that. I'd hate to lock that money up in one fund or the other, without having the time to think about it, or look into their proposals, or even, if we leave it in the roads program and maybe it has to be used there, or so. I'd rather just not appropriate it as Mr. Single suggested, and then just go that route, and we'll deal with it next meeting.
That's what's on the table, Councilman. That's the proposal. That's the motion. And as Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you call the roll.
Motion was by Mr. Scott, supported by Mr. Salvatore.
Mr. Chairman.
It's a motion.
Mayor Gamelli has a question.
Just a statement. Gentlemen, I think the budget should be passed as is, and that's my only statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. So this motion right now is just for the capital.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right,
The
so,
motion is to take 95,000 from the Economic Development Fund, correct?
correct.
And reduce that fund.
And reduce it to
Reducing
270.
the Economic Development Fund by $95,000.
Correct, I just wanted,
Along with $729,000 in the capital.
we're making two motions.
You can make it as one mass motion to combine both of them, or if you guys are more comfortable making two, make two.
Two.
I'll entertain motions.
Motion was so made on the 95,000.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor for a reduction of $95,000 from the Economic Development Fund.
243.
Looking for support.
I'll support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported, to reduce the Economic Development Fund by $95,000. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
No.
no. Mancini? Yes. Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Okay, second motion. Second motion is to take 729,000, that's the number, right, Greg? 729,000, correct?
Through the chair to Councilman Scott, yes, that is the figure.
Take 729,000 unrestricted funds to leave it unappropriated in fund, in the capital improvements fund.
Support.
Motion on the floor to not appropriate $729,000 from Fund 401, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Yes.
Mancini, Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
That motion carries. So we'll recap that real quick so everybody's aware. $729,000 will not be appropriated in Fund 401. $95,000 will be reduced from the Economic Development Fund, per the two prior motions. All right, gentlemen, we are back to,
Comment. real quick. I just want to back myself up on this, why I'm doing what I did. I had a conversation last night with the fire chief, and his proposal is for 150,000, but that was including the fires, the door. Also, there's all kinds of different bells and whistles he had on that. If he would have appropriated, and I told him, I said, you know, I would have felt more comfortable if he would have come up with just what you wanted. You just wanted the door. I mean, that's the type of stuff I was talking about. Today, I talked to the maintenance supervisor over at the garage. There's information that I got from him today that I didn't have until I got that report last night. So there were questions that I had. That was my main reason for doing this. I think instead of us trying to jump into something with paperwork that we got yesterday and the day before, whatever, so we step back a little bit. How much of this is really time sensitive? That's basically my reason for what I did.
I think that's why we're calling for some meetings for next week. Let's get this over with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can, really quick, being a council member going into my 5th year, yeah, these kind of came a little late, but we all do know the money isn't there, okay? The streets, it's gonna be tough. With this 800, what's it gonna get us? It gets us a street, but it doesn't solve our big problems. The mayor said 45 million. Yeah, he's probably right. I would love to see that divvied up in each ward. What's it gonna get me? Maybe a cul-de-sac. I don't know. But I do know we gotta watch our monies. I know these came late. There's some things we could look at. I wanna think here, pretty sure in my head, that we did the right thing. Again, money is very, very tight. We've heard it on this dais here the past 2 weeks, numerous times. So again, we have to be smart. With our funds, streets are big, but there's a lot of other issues too. We're short on our police, we're short on our service, we're short on our fire, amongst many other things. So with our monies, we have to be a lot smarter, and I kind of felt we did this a little bit tonight, but that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Orcutt?
Just to clarify, same thing, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I didn't make that vote for us to take 800,000, put it in the street program. I know what we're gonna do with it. We're gonna give it to the people that need it. Mr. Gardner, for example, needs 100 grand. I just did it just so we can take some time, breathe, and see exactly what we need. So, Mayor, we'll be supporting all this stuff. I did that for, not to put 800,000 in the street program, just so we can slow it down, take a look at things, so.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt, and I'd like to weigh in on that also. I mean, in defense of the actions I'm seeing this evening, is the fact that, with getting the wish lists of departments and seeing that those were reduced, we received the wish list, just 2 days ago, and then spoke with department heads yesterday, some 24 hours ago now, to learn that there were some cuts in their items that were there. So the itemization of these things would have helped for everybody to have them a little bit earlier. I mean, obviously, defending everybody, that the mayor himself, myself, and some of the council members up here were new, and things have gotten a little bit late and caused possibly some of these issues. But these are things that we need to work through, and seeing this idea of holding back on these appropriations so that we can take a comprehensive look, I think is a good idea. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. I didn't view the list that the department heads came and gave to us yesterday as a wish list. The wish list was what they submitted to the mayor weeks ago, and that wish list was cut in half. That list that they gave us, in my opinion, is what is necessary for them to do their jobs efficiently and to the best of their ability. As you can see from the budget, there's not money to go everywhere. We have to give each area a little bit of money. I mean, the roads program has more money than any one department has, which isn't a lot in any department. I don't view it as a wish list. I view it as the tools to do the job. We expect them to operate at a high level and service our city at a high level. They need to get the tools that the bare minimum that they're requesting, I mean, for the fire department, for example, they want to use that ladder truck. They need to use that ladder truck. We can't even use it on our own house fires, as he explained, because of the situation they're in. Let's give them the tools. Let's let them use it. I mean, I hope going forward, you know, when we talk about where we're going to appropriate this money, we really try to give it to the departments that requested it, because that's the stuff they need. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, just, I'm not arguing with you, please. Yes, we did get the wish list the other day, but you know what? After looking at this, and like Mr. Salvador said, you know what? Mr. Elliott removed the movie projector screen, and he also removed the removable fence, the portable fence. You know what? There may be a way to put that back in there. That's what this is about. Taking these wish lists, looking at them. Will Mr. Elliott possibly get that back? He may. He may get a movie projector. There may be some way we can get that for them. This wish list is something to work off of, okay? I'm not saying that he's definitely going to get them, but you know what? There's a chance it may. So that's what this is about. Taking the money back. Sit back, look at what we have here, evaluate it. Hey, like I said, Mr. Elliott may get a movie projector and a portable fence after we look at this. You never know. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, let's look at this. Take the time. If there's anything here that's so, you know, that's time constrictive, or we need to move on real quick, department heads tell us and we'll move on it. We'll take a look at it. But, you know, will these funds be given out? Sure, they'll be given out. Will 800,000 go into roads? No, 800,000 won't go into roads. But there may be something in here where we can finagle and tweak and get them something extra that isn't on their original appropriation list. That's all, you know. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Salvatore.
I would suggest that the motion be made to suspend because of the amendments that were made, and it should be 7-zip. Otherwise, we should call a special meeting for Friday or Saturday so that we can pass the budget by Saturday. So I'd make a motion to suspend.
Support.
Motion on the floor to suspend, properly supported. Discussion.
Suspend so we can pass it tonight.
See no discussion. Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt the budget, properly supported. Discussion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Because it passed. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion to adjourn, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini? Poindexter?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned at 8:40. Good night, everyone.